Lesson 3. Moving cellular materials. Passive transport. Recall from Lesson 2 that membranes are the boundaries between cells and between organelles. Another important role of membranes is to control the movement of substances into and out of cells. A cell membrane is semi-permeable. This means it allows only certain substances to enter or leave the cell. Substance can pass through a cell membrane by one of several different processes. The type of process depends on the physical and chemical properties of the substance passing through the membrane. Small molecules such as oxygen and carbon dioxide pass through membranes by a process called passive transport. Passive transport is the movement of substances through a cell membrane. Without using the cell's energy, passive transport depends on the amount of substance on each side of the membrane. For example, suppose there are many molecules of oxygen outside the cell than inside it. Oxygen will move into the cell until the amount of oxygen is equal on both sides of the cell membrane. Since oxygen is a small molecule, it passes through a cell membrane without using the cell's energy. The different types of passive transport are explained on the following pages. Diffusion. What happens when the concentration of amount or per unit or volume of a substance is unequal on each side of a membrane? The molecules will move from equal with a higher concentration of that substance to the side with a lower concentration. Diffusion is the movement of substances from an area of high concentration to an area of lower concentration. Usually, diffusion continues through a membrane until the concentration of a substance is the same on both sides of the membrane. When this happens, a substance in equilibrium. Compare the two diagrams in Figure 12. What happening to the red dye that was added to the water on one side of the membrane? Water and dye passed through the membrane in both directions until there were equal concentrations of water and dye on both sides of the membrane. Osmosis, the diffusion of water. Diffusion refers to movement of any small molecules from higher to lower concentrations. However, osmosis is the difference of water molecules only through a membrane. Semi-permeable cell membrane also allows water to pass through them until equilibrium occurs. For example, the amount of water stored in the vacuole or plant cell can decrease because of the osmosis. That is because the concentration of water in the air surrounding the plant is less than the concentration of water inside the vacuoles of plant cells. Water will continue to diffuse into the air until the concentrations of water inside the plant cells and in the air are equal. If the plant is not watered to replace the lost water, it will wilt and eventually die. Facilitated diffusion. Some molecules are too large or chemically unstable to travel through a membrane by diffusion. When molecules pass through a cell membrane using special proteins called transport proteins, this is a facilitated diffusion like diffusion and osmosis. Facilitated diffusion does not require a cell to use energy. As shown in Figure 13, a cell membrane has transport proteins. The two cells of transport proteins are carrier proteins and channel proteins. Carrier proteins carry large molecules such as the sugar molecule glucose. Through the cell membrane, channel proteins form pores through the membrane. Atomic particles such as sodium ions and potassium ions pass through the cell membrane by channel proteins. Active transport. Sometimes when cellular material passes through membranes that it requires a cell to use energy. Active transport is the movement of substances through a cell membrane. Only by using the cell energy Recall that passive transport is movement of substances from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration. However, substances moving by active transport move from areas of lower concentrations to areas of high concentrations. So, as shown in figure 13, active transport is important for cells and organelles. Cells can take and need nutrients formed from the environment through a carrier proteins by active transport. These occurs even when concentrations of these nutrients are lower in the environment than inside the cell. Some other molecules and waste materials also leave cells and by active transport. Endocytosis and exocytosis. Some substances are too large to enter a cell membrane by diffusion or by using a transport protein. These substances can enter a cell by another process, endocytosis. Shown in figure 14 is the process during which a cell takes in a substance by surrounding it with the cell membrane. Many different types of cell use endocytosis. For example, some cells take in bacteria and viruses using endocytosis. Some substances are too large to leave a cell by diffusion or by using a transport protein. These substances can leave a cell another way. Exocytosis, shown in figure 14, is the process during which a cell's vessels release their contents outside the cell. Proteins and other substances are removed from a cell through this process. Cell size and transport. Recall that the movement of nutrients, waste material, and other substances into and out of the cell is important for survival. For this movement to happen, the area of the cell membrane must be large compared to its volume. The area of the cell membrane is the cell's surface area. The volume is that amount of space inside the cell. As the cell grows, both its volume and its surface area increases. The volume of a cell increases faster than its surface area. If a cell were to keep growing, it would need large amounts of nutrients and would produce large amounts of waste material. However, the surface area of the cell's membranes would be too small to move, so even though nutrients and water through it for the cell to survive.